Some of it comes from how we were brought up, of course. I mean, there is certain things that you realize as you get older. You get to know yourself better, and you realize what are the things that drive you. For me personally, I think it is I want change, and I want positive change. I'm obsessed with the idea. Obsessed, yeah. With the fact that we are sort of driving towards the end of the road, and nobody, it's just the music is on and we don't really care because it also, and there's this notion that you could ask yourself the question saying, if I know that 100 years from now a meteor is going to hit the Earth and everybody's going to die, if I told you that as a fact, would you change the way you live?
Hi everybody and welcome to FEBE Founder Stories, and it's absolutely brilliant to be joined by Morten Toft-Beck. Morten, thank you so much for, you've actually flown in for today, haven't you? I mean, not for today, but because you're speaking in London tomorrow, but you've, as things stand, you've literally got off the plane.
Yeah, I have, yeah. It's lovely to be here, so thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, no, so I actually met you quite recently at HQ in Leeds and had a lovely time because I was actually with the food scientists looking how the food is prepared. So it was so nice to be able to go there and actually see Meatless Farm in terms of really being able to tangibly get a feel and a sense for it by being there with your people. There's a great sense of pride from your people that work there, which was lovely to see.
Yeah.
Remember when we were with the food scientists, they absolutely loved what they were doing. It was like an art. Well, it is an art, but just how they were basically experimenting with the food. Anyway, I had to get you in front of the camera because your story was just brilliant. So let's cover a few things from what you do. Meatless Farm. Let's state the obvious, but just tell us what is
it. It is meatless.
Tell us about Meatless Farm, just in terms of giving some context and without the intention of a pun, some flavour.
Yes, very good, very good.
I didn't mean that, honestly.
No, I will. I'll start from the beginning,
okay.
Which is about 6 years ago now, where I was standing in my kitchen in Ibiza. So it sounds very exotic, but I lived almost 15 years in London. I met my wife here. We got kids, and realized that life in a big city was a little bit difficult, and we had an opportunity to move to Ibiza.
And so you're Danish, is your wife English then?
She's half German, half Belgium.
Okay.
But anyway, London was our place. It was our. We thought we would never leave. Yeah. And then the kids came along, and we thought, well, let's try countryside living. My wife is a long-term vegetarian and is very into sort of whole foods and the way you should eat and farm and grow your own vegetables and all this stuff, which is very difficult when you live in Notting Hill. So we
almost impossible.
Unless you go to the local playground and start planting some carrots, which we didn't. So we moved, and as we got there, that is a very, very different rhythm of life. So my wife said to me after about 6 months there, "You are still young. You need to do something. I want you out of the house." So her notion was, can't you do some sort of product which is a vegetarian product but has an appeal to the broader audience? And this is before Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods and these American brands that then over the last few years have made a lot of noise in the market about plant-based eating and how we could make meat out of plants, essentially. So we started sort of before that point in time, and I went to work with it.
And let me just have some context on this, because one thing I've noticed about you is you'd be too humble to really to say this, but in your 20s you'd had a really successful exit with a technology business. Is it a hedge fund that you created as well, or is that you?
Yeah, I set up I set up a fintech company about 13 years ago, which still exists today, which is
trades across the pond as well.
It trades. We trade financial listed instruments with algorithms. So basically, we have a predictive engine that sort of spots patterns in microstructural data.
So if you don't mind me saying, then you'd hit a point with financial freedom, independence, whereby it was a kind of your wife saying, "Come on, Morten, don't stop now, keep on going." but maybe let's think about the purpose. A purpose beyond money with this next business. Is that?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's easy to sound like a champagne socialist when you are living in Ibiza in a comfortable setting. But it is true. I mean, my wife is an architect, and I guess an entrepreneur is what I
guess.
am in one way or another.
Yeah.
A person that creates businesses, and she wanted me to go out and try to create a business which wasn't about making money, but about making some positive impact. And I totally subscribe to that as well, because as you sit there as a parent and you have young kids, you start realizing that the future that we're heading towards, unless we do something in so many different areas and provide some new technologies for improving, say, the way we consume electricity, the way we drive, the way we fly, the way we eat, the many things that fall into this. Unless someone starts up something and does something, well, then it's not going to happen. We can't just continue the way we are. And so I was very happy to pick it up. I did say to her, I have no idea about food. I've never worked in the food industry before, but I'll do my best. I'll try to set up something which is edible. And if it is a product that I sort of feel that we could do something with, then I'll set up the business. So we started up with a long period of research and development.
And you said your wife is a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So had that therefore built in the kind of, for you, the principle of therefore, right, not eating meat. So if you see what I mean, for you, it was something that was as an interest, very aligned to therefore what you wanted to, really make your purpose.
Yeah, I think, well, if you look a little bit, if you start doing a little bit of research into the meat industry and you realize how big it is,
yeah,
and how detrimental it is on the environment.
How big is it?
It's a between 1.3 and 1.5 trillion dollar industry globally. Volumes are absolutely enormous, and there are what I call industrialized animal agriculture farms that are so vast that you can't believe it. So again, I want to say I have nothing against animal farming. I understand that eating meat is a principle. It's a cultural thing. It's something that we have teeth that are made to do as well. It's just that this idea of us eating meat Monday, 7 days a week essentially, and often 3 times per day, which we moved into, it is not really sustainable, right? So as I think we talked about when you were up in our headquarters, is the Sunday roast is called a Sunday roast because it was something special you did with your family on a Sunday. You sat down and you ate a piece of meat and something else. Yeah? But it was a one-off event for many families once a week to be able to do that and afford it. And then over the last sort of 70, 80 years, 100 years, we've gone into mass production of meat. The volumes have increased and the price hence have come down, and therefore it's affordable to eat meat every single day, 3 times a day.
And the health repercussions of too much meat are well documented and well evidenced that it's not a particularly good thing to be doing a lot.
No, I mean, it depends on what type of meat. So it's as with everything, the devil is in the detail, and we need to look at. It's not. There's also a lot of animal agriculture where you could say that carbon capturing in the soil with their hooves, they walk around, they poo on the ground, and it's fertilized, and there is ways that farming can be done sustainably.
Yeah.
The meat that's produced from grass-fed beef is of a totally different quality than what I'm talking about when I mention industrialized animal agriculture.
And that's what you mean, industrialized level. Which is,
so
the shortcuts.
Exactly. Yeah, our first product and still our best-selling product is our minced meat. So essentially a pack of 400 grams of minced meat that just entails, well, what it is. It's minced meat that will replace a pack of traditional animal-based minced meat. You do exactly the same with it. You take it home, you cook a shepherd's pie or a spag bowl.
We took it home. Charlotte loves it. We took it beautiful. So yeah, I'm salivating now just starting to talk about it. And actually, the guys that we had in before who talking to you before, they were the mincemeat. The mincemeat seems to be a real crowd pleaser, doesn't it?
It is, but it's also it was specifically that. I mean, I looked at it. Some of our American competitors came to Europe with Storm a few years ago with burgers, and I was sort of looking at it, and from a European perspective, burgers is a seasonal product. It's not something that we eat all the time. They might do that in the US, I don't know, but here we don't. What do we eat every single day in some way or another is minced meat. At least an average household will consume about 2 to 3 packs of minced meat over a period of, say, 2 weeks. So it is a very, very high. I mean, it is one of those items that the supermarket it's a high rotating item.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you want to have an environmental impact, you need to go in where the volumes are and change that. So we have now a target in Meatless Farm that we want to be part of replacing 25% of all minced meat volumes in the UK by 2025.
25%?
Of all the minced beef, animal-based, that's sold right now, we want to take out 25% of that by 2025. That's not just Meatless Farm, but that would be together with our competitors. So, and that has a very, very sustainable angle to it. There will be a lot of benefits if we manage to achieve that as an industry. Yeah. And then what we're saying internally is that we are about 37% of all the minced volumes of minced vegetarian, vegan minced sold in the UK already. So we are leading that category, and we want to continue to do that because it is really where you're going to see some environmental impact.
So let's go back to in the I don't know if you said the kitchen. I'm imagining you were in the kitchen, in the lounge, whatever, talking to Mrs. Toftbeck.
Ingrid.
Mrs. Ingrid.
Ingrid.
Sorry, we did have this conversation. Take your surname, didn't
you?
And did you fast forward to today? Massive operation in Canada, head office obviously in the UK. The huge distribution that you now have, having raised over £100 million. Was that written in the stars? Was that how it was supposed to be, or is this taken on a life that maybe you didn't quite expect it to?
I hope. I mean, I think every time you set something up, you expect it to be successful because otherwise you wouldn't start. But you of course know that there's a very, very high probability that your venture will not be successful because there's so many things in any entrepreneurial activity you do that can go wrong. But I did realize that if we need to have traction with this and we need to do something, it sort of falls right into the ESG. So the space of environmental investing, and where there is investors that are impact focused, that come into the space because they want to invest into technologies that will have a transformative power in them to change the environment for better. You know, the sort of whole fight against climate change and about CO2 emissions and so forth. And there's a whole bunch of different companies in different areas that are doing wonderful stuff. You know, I think electrical cars is a good example of things where you can always discuss the details of it, but at least it is better than a combustion engine in many ways. And it is sort of transforming the way that we start looking at vehicles and how we transport ourselves in a non-combustion way without burning fossil fuels. And the food industry is another area where there's so many areas to tackle food waste, how we produce, how we grow crops. This whole thing in the UK that there is a limited amount of crop cycles left because we've basically depleted the soil for nutrients. All the way from farmers to consumers, we need to introduce change. And so for me, I was hopeful that there would be a successful trajectory of the business and that it could not be organic because it simply takes too long. And what we don't have in terms of climate change is time, because we're already running behind of where we should have been. And I think, when you see what comes out, the results from COP27 or whatever number we are at now from the first one, the actual changes. There's been a lot of words from politicians, but there's been very little factual stuff implemented that will make change. Yeah, the meat and dairy industry in Europe is still heavily subsidized, while plant-based, for example, gets nothing. And it is. I
can't believe when you said that.
Yeah, but it's a bizarre. I think that we, now luckily enough, there has been private funding available in the market to help finance this sort of revolution of how we consume protein. So it's not only Meatless Farm, but there's a whole bunch of companies in various things, from plant-based milk to plant-based cheese to eggs to meat. There's a range of products that have been say innovated now, and over time they will get better and better and better because they were funded by jet fuel, as I call it, by venture money. Yeah. And so I didn't expect to raise or needing to raise that much money, but it is an expensive. Fresh food it's a supply chain nightmare in terms of you need to vertically integrate your supply chain in order to be able to deliver both on proprietarity, meaning your IP, You need to create something that you can stand behind, that is healthy, not too processed, and is scalable. So that wasn't available in the market, so we had to build our own factory in order to do that, for example. And
which is in Canada.
Which is in Canada, in Calgary, yeah.
And as you said at the beginning, for someone who didn't actually have any prior expertise, knowledge, per se, in that. So you now look at where you are now, and it is a very complex setup, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, the business is complex.
Yeah, I often say the food industry, coming from, say, fintech, for example, where it's about
which is complex,
which is complex in a mathematical, statistical sense, but it's not complex in terms of, well, doing software is very different than doing real physical products.
Yeah.
So you come in here, and the food industry is wonderful because you are an expert. I'm an expert. Everybody's an expert because we all have a palate. You know, you try food and you say, oh, this is not for me, or I love this. And that is the feedback we live from. And the people, as you experienced when you visited us, they're very passionate about, well, obviously Meatless Farm that they work in. We're blessed with that, but they're also very passionate about the industry they work in.
Yes.
Which is something you don't see in many other industries to the same extent.
Yeah.
You maybe have it in fashion, for example, where people are very driven by a passion for fashion, but similarly, there's many other industries where people just have a job. You know, it's just something they work with, and that's it, and then they go home. But in the food industry, people are often driven by this sort of interest in the product, and I really love that. That's really? Something. Yeah.
So even though you've got essentially an insane amount of experts, critics, whatever you want to call them, that for you still excites you. It drives you.
Yeah, but then you try to condense it, and you try to, because when you have 1,000 voices, then, you know, the average will be nothing, essentially. You know, you end up having so many views that you can't really make a decision. So you use consumer testing. We have, you know, blind tasting panels against our competitors and against real meat and against, you know, things that we want to improve on, and then we have measurable sort of results coming from that. So in that sense, statistical analysis does come into food at the very end once you have created the products. But it is, you know, fresh food is very complex to get produced, sent out, and, you know, then you're dealing with shelf life on, you know, how there is a lot of rules and regulation about the food and how it has to be, because you're putting a product into people's stomachs, and you need to be sure that the
implications are serious.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that was so cool that I learned from speaking to you last time was, and I don't know if I'm allowed to mention names. I won't. I'll leave that to you if you feel that. But a big part of the business is selling into restaurants. You have created chicken that is so exactly the same as, I don't want to say real chicken, but you know what I mean? What do I say? Real chicken? Yeah. Real chicken.
Yeah,
animal chicken.
Yeah,
animal chicken. Yeah. That they have to change the side order so that they can differentiate, because they're just, you can't tell the taste apart.
That's true.
That's pretty amazing, Morten. That's when you're winning, when you can do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a nice. That's at Fridays, which is a
TGI Fridays.
TGI Fridays, exactly. So a chain where people will come to essentially indulge themselves in some very good food and some drinks and have a good time. And for us, it's very important that we can sort of showcase our food in places like that as well, where, you know, not necessarily a consumer that walks in there is a vegan or has even that sort of registered on their preference. But when they open the menu and see that there are these things, we realize that we're selling very well, and I think TGI Fridays is also very surprised by this interest, right? But essentially, they had to we have multiple dishes that are served exactly the same way as the chicken products they have. So they had to put a different salad on the side of a different color, so they don't mess up. Because obviously, if you have a vegan and you serve the chicken, you get into trouble. That's for sure. So no, that's a great showcase. I mean, we have many good partnerships now in the UK that in the food service sector that we're very
well, I saw on the wall in your boardroom, so Leon was on there,
Yeah.
I don't want to say the names, and I'll leave you to name drop.
Itsu, Yo Sushi,
Yeah.
Pret a Manger. Pret a Manger is a long-term partner of ours as well, and we've done the meatless meatball wrap with them, which is that Swedish meatball wrap that they have in the hot counter. They have a meat version and a plant-based version, and I would say anyone watching should try to go and buy one of each. And try and eat it and see if they can taste any difference. So there is these things when you can go in and replace an existing product, but do it in a much cleaner way, where essentially the energy that has gone into producing this from a sustainability angle is 1 to 6 or 1 to 9. Then you're starting to see a real effect of your products, that they have beyond having a good taste, they also have a societal function.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah. Well, let's now jump to something I really wanted to delve into with you, which is, so the business is now at a point where the brand is becoming well known. The clients, the customers that you have are, big brands. The business is set up now to really, 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 really scale. And yet you have proposed that you would like to give away your equity. Why is that important to you? What does your motivation become? When I know it's beyond the money, but just I want to understand, because it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yes, and I'm glad you asked, because it's also it can be a bit sort of misleading, some of those things, or what is communicated or not communicated. What I've done is I've allocated my shares that I have left in the company. We've obviously taken in a lot of investors, and I think we have 50 plus investors at this point in time in the business, having raised a lot of rounds of capital and gone through all that. And I have recently sort of put my shares into a trust where they will remain for years to come. And the reason why I've done that is that it's sort of, it links me to the business, just so I don't go out and sell my shares tomorrow because I want to cash in and buy a boat. That has never been my interest, and I just wanted to manifest that when I say to someone, or I say to our employees or investors I speak to, that I did not set Meatless Farm up from a monetary point of view. I didn't do it to make it should not be about valuations and returns and so forth only. It should also be about the impact that we are doing.
So you've got it. So what you've done is separated that completely from, therefore, staying true to your purpose, which is where you'll take.
Because I think there is a problem in terms of a lot of sort of startup funding, because there is some sort of the minute that you get funding in, then the clock is sort of ticking, right? The minute you get enough capital in, a lot of your board meetings and investor meetings becomes a discussion about your exit. Mine, of course, as a founder of the business, it would be linked to the exit of the business as well. But it's not where, how I want to build a long-term sustainable business, but I just didn't have the time to do it organically like we could have done 50 years ago with a family business. So I needed to take in venture funding to sort of, as I said before, jet fuel in the tanks, and then you can accelerate, because it's a competitive space and everything nowadays is going so fast that you sort of need funding to fuel, especially if you do brand development. Yeah, if you're creating a consumer brand,
to get it known and heard quickly.
Yeah, because it's just, there are so many brands, there's so much noise out there. So unless that you have some money to put behind, and you haven't, you need to have a brand as well that resonates and has a true purpose, I think, but it's not enough, unfortunately. You need to fuel that with some sort of investment as well, so it becomes known. Yeah? If you do that, then you are going down the track of taking in venture funding, losing some of your independence. And with that, then comes this sort of timelines in terms of what is your exit? Will you sell the business? Are we going to do an IPO? What are we going to do? And a lot of these discussions are the wrong ones to have, because I think they incentivize entrepreneurs to build up businesses too fast and without a structural P&L that is sustainable for a long-term business. And that is one of the problems in the plant-based space right now, is that we were all rushing so much that we forgot to build supply chains, for example, that, we're being asked now to grow up very, very fast because we're competing with meat. And meat has had 70, 80, 100 years to build a supply chain that can now provide a pack of minced meat into a supermarket with margins. They are earning money for, say, 2.5 pounds, which is 3 pounds. It's insane. How can you have half a kilo almost of dead animal lying there that has gone through this entire, growing up for 28 months and getting fed and being killed, chopped up, and then packaged, gas flush, sent, distributed, and so forth, and then end up in your kitchen for that price. If you think about it, it's amazing how many steps this animal protein has taken and then still be at that price. So of course, for us to come in and provide price parity is very difficult. To the meat, right? So it's just the rush of doing everything is a bit of the problem, but it comes with the territory. And now by allocating my shares into a trust, for example, I'm sort of saying, well, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. I'm not just selling, exiting, or doing something. So, and it is it sort of manifests the purposelessness of the business.
What was really interesting talking to you quite recently when we were up in Leeds at HQ was just how you wanted to have the business set up. And when I talk about this, I mean in terms of your own ownership in the business, to make sure that there is complete focus on longevity and the ability for you to focus on the purpose of the business and therefore not get wrapped up in short-term thinking, short-term focus. And what I mean by that is exit. And exit therefore breeds that, how much money can we make, etc., etc., etc. And I thought it was really interesting when you said that you basically therefore put it into a trust, which therefore meant that it was ring-fenced, almost ring-fencing that whole discussion to be, it's over there, we've got to build this business and we've got to keep on going till we get this business to where it needs to be to enable us therefore, make this purpose a reality, which is creating seismic change in society. So I thought that's fascinating how you really want to make this business so it's totally focused on the purpose and therefore away from money.
Yeah.
So in terms of the future of Meatless Farm, lovely branded jumper that you're wearing there.
Thank you.
I've got all my stash as well that you gave me. But this is a product, as we said earlier, by some of the restaurants that you're in. You're in huge stockists as well, Sainsbury's, etc., etc. Where do you see, in terms of size, what do you think? What do you think this business could be in, say, 5 years' time?
I don't know. A specific, not big. Yeah, this is about volume.
A big brand.
It's a big
volume business. Yeah.
Yeah, big volume business, and obviously with a very significant turnover. If you look at the meat industry, it's something that we consume and eat every day. These type of proteins, and if we take a certain percentage of it, it's you get the idea. I also think there's a little bit of consolidation going on in the market right now, which will probably also help some of the brands, some of the surviving brands that are around, because it is difficult in the current macroeconomic environment to drive any sort of entrepreneurial enterprise. I mean, I think everybody knows that energy prices and raw material prices and consumer price, everything seems to be going up around us at the moment, and it's a very unsettling environment after just having survived and gone through COVID as well. So I think for many people out there and entrepreneurs, it is challenging times. So, but you say the good thing is that there's a little bit of a shakeout, and there should theoretically be the healthier businesses that survive, and some of all the fluff goes away.
Yeah.
That's sort of the survival of the fittest idea. I hope I'm not offending anyone, because I know there's also a lot of great businesses that go down in these periods of difficulty that we're in at the moment. Yeah. But I would see us as Meatless Farm as one of the leading brands in what is essentially a new category of protein. So the way I envision the supermarket, say 10 years from now, is that you walk down the supermarket aisle and it's no longer the meat aisle, but it's the protein aisle. And in that there is
interesting.
Meat.
That's a massive change in the way that we therefore perceive,
yeah,
consume that.
Yeah, because you go into a supermarket now and still most consumers will go in and think, they won't think I'm buying protein, they will think I'm gonna buy meat, I'm gonna either buy chicken or beef or maybe some fish, yeah? But it's all animal derived, and the future is going to be different simply because the offering of meat is just going to be one of them, and then there's going to be another one that's plant-based. There's potentially going to be something called cultivated meat, which is the lab-grown meat, the meat that you sort of, it's a fermentation, you could say, of animal muscle cells that creates a meat artificially, but it's still a bit away in terms of commercialization, difficult word for a Dane, but it is getting the economies of scale working, getting the regulatory framework around it working and so forth is a challenge, but I suspect that at some point in the future that will be another component of that protein aisle. Yeah. So we will be going in and shopping for protein, and Meatless Farm in what is the plant-based category there will be that's my vision anyway, will be a big brand.
Big brand. It's always interesting talking to successful entrepreneurs in terms of mindset. You've had a lot of curveballs, I suspect, a lot of challenges, a lot of barriers you've really had to overcome, some that maybe seemed that they were unsurmountable at times. What is it that's always enabled you to keep on going, to get through, to never let anything derail you from ultimately achieving your end goal?
Now I should say my mother. No. Some of it comes from how we were brought up, of course. I mean, there are certain things that you realize as you get older. You get to know yourself better, and you realize what are the things that drive you. For me personally, I think it is I want change, and I want positive change. I'm obsessed with the idea. Obsessed, yeah, with the fact that we are sort of driving towards the end of the road, and nobody, it's just the music is on and we don't really care because it also, and there's this notion that you could ask yourself the question saying, if I know that 100 years from now a meteor is going to hit the earth and everybody's going to die, if I told you that as a fact, would you change the way you live? It's not going to concern you. It's not going to concern the next generation either. So all the people around you, everyone you've ever known, they are not going to be affected by this, but it is going to affect future generations. Would you change anything?
So in terms of the complete honest answer, I'd probably say, I'm embarrassed to say no, because right now I'm so focused on the now in terms of what I need to, especially running a business, what I need to do to survive and keep on getting through from day to day to week to week. So yeah, my focus is quite short focus. So if you talk about something like that in 100 years, I'm sad to say probably not.
Well, and in there lies the problem that we have with climate change and getting people to actually take action, because it is something that is removed. We know that this, if you see the meteor hitting Earth as climate change, and we turn on BBC and David Attenborough is saying that we need action now, otherwise it's too late. And we see it, and you look at your wife and you say, oh yeah, this is dear, there's a problem, we need to do something. It's a serious situation, and then you turn off the TV and go to bed.
Yeah.
And next morning you get on with running your business and all your other things.
And you forget.
And you forget, right? And then but this is where, for me, the sort of the obsession comes in, that I want to make this easy, because I understand that most people will forget it. But if I'm giving you the choice of walking into the supermarket and you can buy a normal pack of animal mince, and you can buy mine, and I can scientifically show you that mine is so much better for the environment. And it's not about your personal health and your preferences and whatever. It's just simply, right now I'm talking about that sort of meteor and avoiding that, maybe we could just change the direction so it shoots right past the planet, and then our grandchildren's grandchildren will still have the life that we have been privileged to have, right? And I think that is sort of an underlying core driver for my obsession with this. And then the discipline on entrepreneurship is the same as in any other business. You need to find good people. You need to find the passion in your people that will, for us it's easy because that passion that we're just talking about there for change is the one that's so ingrained in our employees. They're proud to work with something that is just not selling cigarettes or sugar to children. They feel that, and they feel that throughout the company. So that culture is an important element in any entrepreneurial enterprise, to build the culture around what you're trying to do. And then I think the rest of it is, I have an experience in raising money and working in the financial industry which I have a past in. So that part is often underestimated by a lot of entrepreneurs as well. How do you actually build and package a business that can attract, that speaks the language that investors speak? Because you need to somehow package it slightly different. And there you have two different poles, two different sides of the spectrum. You have quantitative guys that are sitting and managing capital as a job, who are often not into finding the best return, but they're essentially interested in not having fuck-ups. Sorry, but that's what it is. So they want to keep their job. Yeah. And then on the other hand, you have these very creative people, the entrepreneurs, that have great ideas and want to do, and somehow you need to be able to speak the language of an investor as an entrepreneur to attract capital, which I then had the fortune of tried before, and I knew how to do that.
So that was a massive help.
Yeah. So when you ask me what my sort of what it is, I would say that is, it's an obsession. What creates a good entrepreneurship is it's an obsession. It's creating a culture inside your company where people are gonna work focused on achieving whatever goal it is you have, and then it is that creating that. If you are in a situation where you need external funding, then you have to create the same language that you can speak together with essentially the world of capital.
Yeah. Final question. With all the experience that you have, that you've acquired over the years in business, it made me laugh how you said, I think you alluded to the fact you might be an entrepreneur. You are most definitely an entrepreneur, Morten. But what kind of advice could you give to so many people that like to watch the videos, maybe quite at the start of the journey with their businesses and what have you? But what's some of the best kind of advice that you can give for being able to stay the course and make sure that you can achieve great things?
Keep dreaming is very important. Yeah. So you need to, and again, it depends on in which phase of your life you are as well, because there is different risk factors in different. It's easy to decide to set up a business if you're 20 and you have no obligations. It's a lot harder to do it if you are 40 and have a family to support. So I understand they're different, but you still need to dream about whatever it is that you want to change. Make sure that your business has a purpose in terms of that there is something that is either broken or something that you want to do different. So just double check, verify that it is not the dream of being an entrepreneur that you are in love with, but the dream of actually making something that could work. Yes. As a business. That's sort of the basic. But I'm saying that because I often get business plans sent where I'm just thinking, nice presentation, but there's no business here. Yeah. And it's amazing how much energy people put into stuff that just doesn't have the potential to be a business. But so the first thing is that one, and then once you are doing it, well, then it is the grit and the perseverance and that tenacity that needs to be there. It's the obsession.
It's limitless, right? There is no end to it. It just has to continually be.
No, and it consumes your life, and it is not necessarily a happy journey. No. It is. If it is, well, I would love to see that entrepreneur that just sits and says it was smooth sailing all the way through, and then I sold and I became very rich, and now I live on a boat and sail around the world. There might be some, but most of us will have that sort of very choppy experience of highs and lows and stuff, and most of it is just daily grind. It's just hard work, and that's where you need to remember every day that sort of that's where it helps to have a purpose.
I think you're so right. Don't be like dream big, but don't be in love with the idea of being an entrepreneur. You've got to be in love with your idea. Yeah. An idea that hopefully can be a successful business that can, do great things.
Just run the number in your head.
Commercially, it makes sense.
Exactly. Be realistic about that and not sort of think that just because you want to be an entrepreneur, and this is the best idea you have, right? If it doesn't add up, wait and then think of something else, and wait until you actually have something that you can see is sustainable, and then at the same time as sustainable as a business. I'm not saying that all businesses have to be made around, but you understand. But it is that, and then there's a lot of people saying, the failure of entrepreneurship is where you're really creating, there's this notion that in the US, and particularly, that if you have had a couple of bankruptcies behind you, then you really learned, right? And then you're a better entrepreneur. I would rather say, let's try to avoid those, you know, and then just make sure that your business can walk on its own.
Let's try and stop going over the cliff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you learn a lot from it, but it's not a fun experience. So.
Yeah, perfect. Well, listen, I have loved talking to you. I love what they're doing with the business.
Thank you.
Coming over to see you in Leeds was for me a real eye-opener. It was an experience. It was life-changing. So I wanted to get you in front of the camera to really get this message and make it tangible and get it out there. I have a sneaky suspicion that we are going to be walking down. So I'm picturing it now. We're going to be walking down the aisle. It's not going to be meat. It's going to be protein. And we are going to see Meatless Farm very, very visibly along the aisles, because it tastes absolutely bloody gorgeous. And I just love what you stand for. And, you know, very best of luck. And I hope that you are successful in achieving your purpose, but most importantly, all your dreams. And thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much.